Mike here at Trader True Trading Group. May 9th, good day. Okay, what I'm going to cover with you in this video is something that is a little bit more of an advanced type of lesson and mindset. It really has to do with a broader understanding of the overall markets and a more in-depth understanding. And it's also, we're going to discuss using intraday technical analysis to support a fundamental thesis or trade idea. Okay, because in the SPY today we had the big gap down. Okay, as the fears and uncertainty of the trade talks with U.S. and China continues, and then we sold off in the morning. We actually gapped down below the 50-day moving average on the daily chart. So right off the bat, I'm thinking to myself, damn, we just got below the 50-day. If we can't get back above it in the morning, I'm going to look to get short the market. Today, I bought the TVIX in the morning. Had a couple trades there in the TVIX in the morning, and I caught the sell-off in the SPY in the morning. But then I started to notice something. Okay, the TVIX was uncharacteristically weak compared to the SPY, which was selling off to new lows. And as the SPY was printing new lows, the TVIX was having a very hard time even making it back to test the high of the day, never mind make a new high. So that started to tell me something. Okay, and I ended up switching game plan in the middle of the day after making money long the TVIX in the morning. Okay, so essentially short the market in the morning. And then I flipped the script and I went long the market midday, and I caught a nice option trade. It's some call options in the SPY. A little bit of luck factored into that because I got some comments from President Trump regarding the progress with China and trade talks. So that helped, push that trade along. But the technical analysis that we used intraday to make that trade and the broader understanding of the overall markets that we used to make that trade really put us in a really good position to profit. And in this case, I still think even without his comments, I think that the bounce back in the afternoon, the recovery in the afternoon that we saw, I think we would have gotten that anyway, even without his comments. I think his comments just kind of pushed it a little bit further. And it was just a really good day. It was really good to have a short thesis in the morning, then flip the script because of what we were seeing in the middle of the day, and then go long and then catch the backside bounce back and recovery when the market pushed to new highs. All right, so let's get to the overall markets. I'm going to walk you guys through this. So here we are on the daily chart on the SPY. Here's your 50-day moving averages. This little teal line you see on my screen at 285.50. Okay, let's go back to now the 3-minute chart. Let's zoom this over. Okay, 285.50 is right there. So here we are. We gapped down below the 50-day. And I said, if we can't get back above it, I'm looking to get short the market. And it held, guys, almost to a T, to the penny. Okay, there's your rejection at the 50-day moving average. And right there, guys, I got long the TVIX right in this candle. Okay, I'll take it to my trade announcements. I had to separate my trades into 2 separate screenshots because I was pretty active today. All right, here you guys can see we're long the TVIX. Okay, long the TVIX at 30.26. Stop loss of the SPY gets back above 285.80 area. Okay, so long the TVIX right here. We extend, we start to push lower. We make new lows. We roll it over down here. I start to take some profit off on that TVIX. Took some off at 30.70. Took the bulk of my position off at 31.32. And then what I did here, guys, is I actually was able to add back to this position because of a really, really great technical analysis and a technical setup in the SPY. And this is actually me adding to this position really is what prompted and set me up to start to notice the weakness in the TVIX. And we actually had some negative divergence. It's important for me to discuss with you before I go any further to make sure you understand what the TVIX is. The TVIX tracks the VIX. It is not a direct inverse of the SPY. Okay? It's not a direct inverse. The TVIX tracks, fear and volatility in the marketplace. It is not a direct inverse. It is possible for the SPY to go sideways and the TVIX will still go down. Okay, it is not a direct inverse. Okay, so when there's a lot of fear in the market and you're getting accelerated and exacerbated, selling pressure to the downside, you're going to get big spikes in volatility, big spikes in the TVIX as that fear and uncertainty level rises. Okay, so while we were selling off, okay, in the SPY, we really weren't getting the follow through and the surge higher in the TVIX that I was expecting. So even though I took the bulk of my position off the table on the TVIX as we got down into this level, okay, I looked to say, okay, now let's look to see, does this 284.80 area start to act as an area of resistance? Okay, that was your initial morning low. There's your initial morning low. Now, this line that I just drew, let's go to the daily chart. Let's see if that lines up anywhere. We can delete this 50-day moving average line now, and well, look at this. We've got the lows from that gap up, and then this previous pivot high. They also line up at that area. So now I think to myself, if we stay below this area, this 284.80, we've got a chance to fill this gap, and that's what I was looking for in the morning. That was my game plan, okay, on this trade. Now let's go back, and I said if we get denied back at that previous low, which also lines up with that area we just talked about on the daily chart, if we get denied there, I'm going to add back to the TVIX position. And when you draw out your Fibonacci retracement level from yesterday's close down to at the time, which was the low of the day, you see that the initial morning low, which lines up with that level on the daily chart, also now lines up perfectly with the 23.6 Fibonacci level, VWAP, and the trade line. On top of that, you get a trade line and VWAP crossover to the downside. So right here, back inside this red candle on this rejection, I added back to the TVIX. Okay, so again, we go back to the trade announcements. That first take profit, guys, was 25% of the position. The second take profit was 50% of the position. So I'm down to 25% of the position, and I added back to the full position right here on that rejection. Okay, this is when I started to notice that we were getting some negative divergence in the TVIX versus the SPY, because on that rejection, we went right down and we actually were printing new lows. Okay, but the TVIX at that time could not get up to a new high of the day. Okay, that was the first sign that I started to notice, okay, we're not making new highs there on the SPY, even though we just printed new lows. We bounce back a little bit. We find resistance at that trade line, as you should, after you get that crossover pattern. There's your resistance, and then bang, we crack the low of the day, and we start to accelerate to the downside. I go ahead and I take more profit off the table as we accelerate lower. Back to my chart announcements, you can see I took more profit off at 31.75 as now the TVIX finally made a new high. Okay. So now let's go back. Oh, sorry. I already did my trade announcement. So now here we go. I took some profit off here. And now what I'm looking for is this low. Okay, this low that was previous low. Now I'm looking for it to act as resistance. Great. That's exactly what's happening. And now I'm expecting the rollover and get down to fill that gap that I was talking about on the daily chart. Well, you can see we ended up popping back above that previous low, and I exited the rest of the TVIX position as we bounce back up above that previous low. Back to my trade amounts, as you can see, I sold out the remaining piece at 30.63. I ended up giving back some profits on this TVIX trade. You can see from when I added to the position versus when I ended up getting flat. So that add, I ended up losing a little bit as we bounced back up here because the TVIX really started to pull in. I mean, look at that pullback. We went all the way to test the low of the day. This is what I need you to notice here, guys. We pulled all the way in to test the low of the day in the TVIX. But when I go back to the SPY, we are nowhere near, okay, the high of the day. Look at where we are in comparison to the high of the day. Nowhere near it. But yet, you have the TVIX pull all the way back to the low of the day. That is when I first started to get my attention to say, okay, you know what? Something's off. Okay, we do not have the fear and kind of panic selling pressure that I was expecting, okay, on the SPY. And then right here, we actually made new lows. Okay, here's a new low of the day. And when we go back to the TVIX, okay, here's the move the TVIX made, nowhere near the high of the day. Okay, so we've got negative divergence that we're seeing here between the TVIX and the SPY. Okay, I actually traded that. Let me delete all this. A lot of noise here. All right, because I actually traded the TVIX again because of a bearish pennant pattern. To see this pennant pattern, let's go to a 5-minute chart. You can see it a little bit more clearly. Okay, and I'll show you guys what I was seeing. I started to see a little bit of a bearish pennant pattern. Okay, So right in here, after I've already gotten flat the TVIX, I went ahead and I took a tier 1 position inside the TVIX right here because you can see that we were getting resistance at VWAP multiple times. Look at this resistance at VWAP, this orange line on my screen. Okay, you see that resistance level at VWAP. So I go in there, I take a tier 1 position, okay, as we've got resistance at VWAP, and I see this bearish pennant pattern forming, and I say I'm going to add tier 2 if we break below the bottom line of this bearish pennant, which we did. Okay, so I went ahead and I added to that position. Okay, we ended up making a new low of the day. Okay, look, we just talked about this. I said, let me go back to the 3-minute chart. Okay, here we are. We made a new low of the day. As soon as we printed that new low, okay, I took a little profit off the table. Let me go back to my trade announcements. Okay, so here you guys can see long the tier 1 at 30.85, stop loss if the SPY gets above VWAP, and then I'm going to add tier 2 if we break below 283.60, which was the bottom trend line of that pennant pattern. Okay, so you can see we ended up making a new low on the SPY, which we talked about. So I took some profit off on the TVIX 8 minutes after my entry at 31.42 from the 30.85 entry. Okay, and then right away we took it back. A little mini lesson in here, guys. When you are trading a pennant pattern, a good way to tell that pattern has failed is when you actually get a break out of the pattern and it immediately goes right back into it. Okay, so this is happening to the downside. So this is a bearish pennant. We broke below and immediately came back inside the pattern. If you're trading for like a bullish pennant and you break up and out of the pennant, out of that pattern, and then you pull right back inside, that's a bearish signal. That would be a sign of a failed pattern. Okay, so in this case, as soon as that happened, I got flat the rest of that TVIX position. Okay, so here we are getting flat. I sold out the remaining at 31.12. Okay, so a little bit of profit there on that trade, but this is what really started to get my attention, because I noticed when we made that low, we did not get a new high on the TVIX, not even close. So now I'm thinking to myself, what could be causing this bearish divergence? And this is where the broader understanding of the markets comes in. This is where the fundamental thesis comes in. We've been talking a lot about, if you watch my videos the last couple of days, we've been talking a lot about how susceptible the market is to the slightest little news headline or comment or tweet that comes out of Trump, anybody from the White House, any U.S. political figure, a Chinese figure, Chinese media, U.S. media, whatever it is. We're very susceptible to it. Yesterday, before the close, Trump said one sentence before getting on a plane. The market dropped. The SPY dropped 2.5 points. Earlier in the morning yesterday, Sanders came out, said a statement. In the morning, the SPY popped 1.5 points. Pre-market this morning, Senator Marco Rubio, he said something that China was not ready to make a deal. That dropped the SPY 1.5 points pre-market. It's crazy, okay? That is how susceptible we are to news headlines. So what I started to say to myself was, okay, if the TVIX is showing me some weakness, then that means that the fear and panic is not in the market. Why could that be? And when I started to theorize was that I think that maybe the bears in this market are a little concerned, or they're a little unsure, they're a little worried about a comment or some positive rhetoric coming out of Trump, because Trump watches the market, guys. He sees when we're down 400, 450 points. You've seen him put out tweets before in the middle of the day. You've seen him put out tweets in the fourth quarter of last year when the market was selling off to kind of instill confidence and get a rally back in the market. So I felt like that was what was taking place. And I'm saying this could be a perfect opportunity for the market to bounce back and recover going into the deadline for a trade deal, no deal, yes, we have a deal, or tariffs, no tariffs. Okay, we're hours away from that deadline. So what I'm thinking is that this is the perfect time, because we just talked about, okay, a failed breakdown of a bearish pennant pattern. Okay, so that is a bullish signal. Okay, a failed breakdown of that bearish pennant. Okay, which makes that a bullish signal. Okay, and we're pushing back above where VWAP, which showed us earlier that it was an area of resistance all morning. Okay, all morning that VWAP showed us resistance. So now we've just broken. We had a failed breakdown of the bearish pennant. We're breaking above VWAP, which was resistance all morning. Okay, And we have this negative divergence in the TVIX that shows me lack of conviction to the downside and lack of fear. So this is when right here, guys, literally right here, when we just popped our head above VWAP, right there is where I bought some SPY call options. I'll take you guys to my trade announcements here. You guys can see at 12:18, SPY 285 strike, May 10th expiration, call options at $2.15. And right away, bang, we get that pop right through VWAP. Then you get we pull back in, we pull back in, the trade line comes up, crosses over VWAP, VWAP holds support, and then right here, guys, is where we got the comments from Donald Trump. Donald Trump comes out right here and he says he got a beautiful letter from President Xi saying that they want to work together to get to a deal, and he said he has an excellent alternative to a trade. To the trade deal if he doesn't get one, and that instilled some confidence in the market, and that was some positive rhetoric, which is exactly what we had talked about earlier in the morning, guys. We talked about this the entire morning in chat. I didn't trade anything else today besides the TVIX and the SPY options. It was all we were discussing. I mean, a lot of people were trading some other stuff. I'm saying what I was focusing on. Some of our other moderators were trading some other things, but it was all that I was focusing on. It was all that I was talking about. And yes, obviously, I got a little bit lucky with Trump coming out with the comments when he did, but I really do think we were on our way, to get back up and start to recoup some of this gap down even before he came out. I think he just sped up that process, and as we started to extend higher, I just started taking profits off the table. You can see I took 25% of the position off at 250, half the position at 270, and then I got flat at $3.39 on those options from the 215 entry. It was a sick trade. And yes, there's a little bit of luck in there because I got his comments, but there's also a lot of fundamental reasoning and technical analysis that went into that decision, and that went into the chances of us getting a comment like that from Trump or from anyone in the White House for that matter. And that's why it's important to have a broader understanding of the overall markets, because it'll help you dictate sentiment. And once you dictate sentiment, that's going to help you do multiple things. It's going to help you with not only your stock selection, but your trade execution. Okay? Like, for example, if the market gaps up 350 points tomorrow because there's no tariffs, I don't think your game plan should be shorting stocks. Okay? Every morning pre-market, we go over market sentiment, what I think the market's going to do. Am I bearish? Am I bullish? Because that will dictate the rest of my game plan throughout the day. So having that broader understanding of the overall markets and the relationship between the TVIX and SPY, recognizing that we didn't have that fear and panic selling in the TVIX because the TVIX was nowhere near the high of the day when the SPY was making new lows, and then the SPY was bouncing back just barely in the midway point in the day, but yet the TVIX rolled all the way back down to test the low of the day. That negative divergence showed me lack of fear, lack of panic selling. And when I got a technical indicator of a failed bearish pennant breakdown in the middle of the day, okay, that was me using technical analysis intraday to support a fundamental thesis or fundamental trade idea, which was the overall understanding of the market and that negative divergence with the TVIX. And that's how I came up with this trade, and that's why I entered those call options right there when we popped our head there above VWAP, and then Trump comes out, and then I get the extra oomph, and I just was taking profits off on those call options up into this push, and it was a great trade. Okay, it was a great trade. So a little bit of luck helped me out today, guys, but there was a lot of fundamental analysis and technical analysis that went into that trade setup and that trade idea, so I was happy to capitalize on it. Okay, we'll see what happens tomorrow. My guess, guys, there's three possibilities. One, we have a trade deal. Two, we have no trade deal, but we get no increase in tariffs. We get an extension on that. And option three is no trade deal, and we get tariffs, and negotiations are pretty much done. In that case, I think the market sells off pretty hard. My guess, if I had to place a bet, I would say most likely scenario is we get no trade deal, but negotiations are still ongoing. There will be no tariffs get increased. Trump will come out and say, we're going to extend the truce. We're no tariffs. We're going to extend it another 2 weeks. We're making really good progress. We're working towards a great deal, but it's got to be a great deal. And President Xi, I had a great conversation with him. I have a lot of respect for him, and he wants to come to a deal, and we're very close. Both sides are working very hard. I think we're going to get a deal done, but we'll see. And if we don't, that's okay. I think that's exactly what he's going to say. We'll see. if that is what he says, I do think the market does go higher. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Take care, guys.